With the final preseason game done and in the book, let's do this stupid exercise of trying to predict the final 53-man roster. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and today we're going to do a little bit of a longer one. We're going to have some fun. The last preseason game just ended yesterday. Cutdown day is Tuesday, and we're going to try to predict what the 53-man roster for the New York Jets is going to look like. Now, a couple of rules that I've put in place for this 53-man roster. I haven't been able to trade for or trade anyone, and I'm not picking up any players that might have been cut or anything like that. In reality, I think that the New York Jets might claim one or two players off of an injury list, not off of an injury list, but after cutdown days at specific positions, and I'll address those positions when we get there. But also, I have done, when you look and you count all of the players, I think I'm at 55 players. That's because I'm doing a little bit of 53-man roster chicanery, shenaniganery to get to the 53 number, technically according to the rules, but doing it a little bit creatively. But let's not waste any time. Let's hop right into it. And we're going to start with the quarterback position, and we're going to carry two quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson. Thankfully, Aaron Rodgers has a very, very good history of staying healthy and even playing through injuries. And Zach Wilson has only been hurt once in what's going to be his third year in the NFL, but even then, he has a tendency to stay healthy. He doesn't get hurt. So I don't think that the emergency third quarterback or any of those situations will come up for the New York Jets. We're not like the San Francisco 49ers that has a history of having hurt quarterbacks, and there are other positions that I valued more than carrying Tim Boyle, especially since I can almost guarantee that Tim Boyle is going to clear waivers and make it to the practice squad, and if any case scenario shows up where we need another quarterback, we can just promote him after one of the two quarterbacks goes down with an injury, but that's not going to happen. We're going to stay healthy all year. Moving on to the running back position, and I think that we're going to carry four running backs, and I think it's pretty easy. I think this room is almost locked in stone. Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, Michael Carter, and Israel Abanikanda are going to be the four running backs that we're going to carry. Unfortunately, I know that we all love guys like Bam Knight, and I know I was a big fan of a guy like Travis Dye and things like that. I just don't feel like this New York Jets roster can sustain that many players, and the unfortunate reality is that you can find Bam Knights everywhere in the NFL, and while that's a sad thing to kind of say, and that's a sad reality to kind of have to live in, it is the truth, unfortunately. So we're going to carry these four running backs. The bright side here is that we're really going to, I think, pound the rock with running backs 1 and 2 and Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. And Israel Abanikanda is going to change game-breaking speed, all of that stuff. Michael Carter with an almost elite level of making guys miss. You know, we've got a really good running back room here. And while we all love our running back room and we all want to keep everybody, I feel that way about a lot of positions. So it's hard to justify keeping more than just these guys. So moving on, let's go into the wide receiver room. And the New York Jets, I think, are only going to keep 5 wide receivers. You can't keep everybody. And with how Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers love throwing to tight ends, I prioritized an extra tight end over the extra wide receiver. So I have the New York Jets keeping Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, Mecole Hardman, and Xavier Gibson of the guys that won the jobs at camp. If the New York Jets decided to only carry 3 tight ends and a 6th wide receiver, my expectation is that the 6th wide receiver would be Malik Taylor, but I don't think that we carry 6 wide receivers. I think we only carry 5, and these would be the 5 that I would go into the year with as of right now. Moving on, we're going to go into the tight end room, and like I said before, the New York Jets are going to carry 4 tight ends: Tyler Conklin, Jeremy Ruckert, CJ Uzomah, and Kenny Yeboah. Kenny Yeboah provides depth and value on special teams, and when asked to play in an in-game situation, has showed us the ability to actually kind of hang right now. The sad reality is that 7th round draft pick Zach Kuntz hasn't done anything at camp or in games to separate himself, to really put himself in a position where I can look at it and say, you know what? The New York Jets should keep Zach Kuntz on the roster. Hopefully Zach clears and we can keep him on the practice squad, because a guy with that level of athletic traits and all of that stuff would be incredible to keep. But As of right now, if I had to make this decision, I am keeping Kenny over Zach because of Kenny's value on special teams and his ability to play on the offense if we need him to. Moving on, I think the New York Jets are going to keep a fullback, and that fullback is obviously going to be Nick Bawden. Now, there's an asterisk here because on Tuesday, I think that we're going to cut Nick Bawden, and I'll explain that a little bit more when I get to the offensive tackle room, which is next. But week 1, Nick Bawden will be on the New York Jets. We're going to cut him as a vested veteran, which means that he does not have to clear waivers. He can go straight to the practice squad for the New York Jets, and then we can bring him back onto the roster after. Let's talk about the offensive tackle room. We bring in our guys, and we do what we need to do in our 53-man roster shenaniganery. But before we get that, we know who our starting tackles are ever since yesterday. We always knew left tackle was going to be Dwayne Brown, and Mekhi Becton was named the starter yesterday, which is awesome for the depth and for the value of our offensive line and how it's going to perform. And then backing up in the offensive tackle room is going to be Billy Turner and Max Mitchell. Now, I also have Carter Warren here with an asterisk, and the reason for that is I think that Carter Warren is going to go onto the 53-man roster at the beginning of the season, and then he is going to put on the short-term IR so that we can then stash him on the roster and keep him there. And because we stash Carter Warren on the IR and we're not doing it at the beginning of the season before the 53-man cuts happen, means that at any point in time during the season, we can elevate him from the IR, take him off of the injured reserve status, and put him back on the roster, and then make a decision about if we're going to cut somebody or anything like that. This gives us the ability to, in a pinch, any point in the year, after I believe it's 6 weeks, we can bring Carter Warren off of the IR and elevate him and play. But this also gives us the ability to give him a theoretical redshirt year and not have him take a 53-man roster spot. And by using the vested veteran clause in the 53-man cuts with Nick Bawden, it allows us to make sure that he's not going to go anywhere. He's going to come back onto the 53-man roster after we IR him, and that is what I think the plan is. I did not know that this was an option, so quick shout out to Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic for, one, putting this in his article and then kind of explaining it a little bit more when I asked him, which was awesome. But that is our offensive tackle room. So in theory, it's actually only 4 offensive tackles, even though there's 5 names listed here. Moving on to the interior of the offensive line, I think that this is also one of the easy locks when it comes to the room. Laken Tomlinson, Connor McGovern, and Elijah Vera Tucker, those are your starters. Joe Tippmann and Wes Schweitzer both have center and guard flexibility, so you have the ability to move these guys anywhere on the interior of the offensive line, and now we're set, and I have the Jets carrying 9 offensive linemen, with the one in the wings in Carter Warren if we need him to. Now, moving over to the defensive side of the ball, we're going to go right to the defensive end room, and the New York Jets are going to carry 6 defensive end. Jonathan Franklin Myers, Jermaine Johnson, and Carl Lawson are all going to get a share of the starting reps. I think every one of those guys' snap count in terms of Carl Lawson and JFM is going to go down because Jermaine Johnson is going to put himself in a position. It's going to be hard to keep him off of the field. Like, it's just not going to be something that you're going to do easily. And so that's the way that it works. And then in a rotation behind those guys as situational pass rushers and in certain spots, you got Will McDonald IV, Michael Clemens, and Bryce Huff. Will McDonald is going to have a really good year, especially in those long yardage situations and even sometimes during the run as he puts on more weight during the season. Michael Clemens on first and second down is really strong and really athletic and is just there to plug up holes. And then Bryce Huff is probably one of the best third down pass rushers in the NFL, period. And so we keep our defensive ends all on the roster that we want to. On the interior of the defensive line was really where I came into the first really difficult decision for me in the 53-man roster spot, because I know how much the New York Jets love their defensive linemen, and I really wanted to carry 5 interior defensive linemen. I think Tanzel Smart earned a spot on this roster, but I had a really hard time sacrificing spots elsewhere for here. Now, I'll talk about where we could maybe take away from the roster in a little bit to keep a guy like Tanzel Smart, which might happen, but it is a little bit hard for me to justify saying Tanzel Smart over another position, especially with how deep our defensive line is, especially when you talk about the fact that, JFM and Michael Clemens can bump inside if they need to play on the inside, and theoretically having 6 defensive ends and 6 interior defensive linemen amongst 10 players is ideal. Again, I just want to keep Tanzel Smart. I think that he's been in the league so long, and I think he's earned the spot to be on an NFL roster, and I want it to be with the Jets, not somewhere else. So I'm hoping that maybe I'm wrong on this one, but this is the decision that I made with my 53-man roster. Moving forward, we're going to go to the linebacker room, and the New York Jets, in my opinion, are only carrying 4 linebackers. I had talked about how this was going to be crazy, that the New York Jets can't carry 4 linebackers. They're going to have to carry a 5th. I spelled Zaire Barnes' name wrong, but that should be a Z, not an S, but it's too late now to fix it. I think we're only going to carry 4 linebackers: CJ Mosley, Quincy Williams, Jamian Sherwood, and Zaire Barnes. And the reason for that is I think that the New York Jets run a ton of nickel coverage. So Michael Carter played 70% of all of the available defensive snaps last year, which means that the only real times that the New York Jets carried a 3rd linebacker or put a 3rd linebacker on the field was for like less than 30% of the snaps. So I'm not all that worried about carrying an extra linebacker, and we'll get to why in a little bit later, because that allows the New York Jets to carry another position that can help fill that void, and we'll get there a little bit later. But let's talk about the cornerback room, another room where I'm going to have to do a little bit of shenaniganery in terms of fitting it on there, because Brandon Echols is he's suspended for week 1. So I think that the New York Jets are going to go into week 1 with Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Michael Carter II, Jimmy Moreland, and Bryce Hall. And Jimmy Moreland is going to be the replacement for Brandon Echols as a cornerback 4. Now, when the situation comes up where Brandon Echols comes back for week 2, that's where you're going to have to make the decision between Jimmy Moreland and Bryce Hall, because one of those guys is going to get cut or traded or moved or something along those lines. If it was up to me, I would cut Bryce Hall. You can save almost $3 million by getting rid of him, and he is not that much better than Jimmy Moreland. I think actually that Jimmy Moreland has had a much better camp and much better preseason than Bryce Hall. And Bryce Hall, ever since 2020, hasn't done anything to justify staying on the roster. And it might be time to move on from him. He's playing out of scheme. He's playing in a weird positional alignment with what we're doing with zone. He is a man corner. We are not a man coverage team. And even in man coverage, I don't trust Bryce Hall all that much. Let's be real. If Bryce Hall or Jimmy Moreland are on the field at any point taking defensive snaps, we're kind of in trouble. But as of right now, I trust Jimmy Moreland more than I trust Bryce Hall, and that's why I'm making that decision. So moving on to the safety room, and this is where we're going to get support for the linebacker room. The New York Jets are going to carry 5 safeties, in my opinion. Tony Adams, Jordan Whitehead, their roster locks, and there was a serious competition between Adrian Amos, Ashton Davis, and Trey Dean for 4 safety spots. Well, why not just carry all 5 of them, especially when you look at guys like Adrian Amos and Trey Dean, who have been shown and have been used as the 3rd safety in big nickel looks, playing as that 3rd linebacker for the New York Jets. We saw that with the ones yesterday with Adrian Amos coming down, playing as a 3rd linebacker in those situations on 1st and 2nd down because he's a more sure tackler. And then on those 2nd and 3rd downs, we saw Michael Carter II come on and play those snaps. So the same thing can be said about Trey Dean, who led the team in tackles in the preseason. He was everywhere, and you cannot expose a guy like Trey Dean. I think that Trey Dean should get the Tony Adams treatment. You keep the guy on the roster. Maybe he's not going to dress. Maybe he's not going to play a ton of games. But I think that Trey Dean, we're looking at a Jordan Whitehead replacement. I think he's got it, and I think that he can play at the NFL level. I don't know what it is, but Trey Dean's got it. And I'm really excited because I think next year our safety room is going to be Tony Adams and Trey Dean, and we're going to find these guys off of the scrap heap and keep them on the team and have them be legitimate players for the New York Jets. And that's more than we can say about some of the guys that were drafted and that we paid big money to. So if you're telling me our starting safeties are going to cost less than $2 million, and they're going to be really solid behind a really, really good defensive line, a really, really good cornerback room, and an improving linebacker room. Sign me up. That's why we're keeping Trey Dean and all of that stuff. And then ending the team with special teams, Thomas Morstead, Greg Zuerlein, Thomas Hennessy. And even though I don't want to keep him on this team, if it was up to me, I would cut him and I would keep Tanzel Smart over him. Justin Hardy is going to make this team. I don't know why Grant Boyer is employed as a special teams coordinator if he can't train and teach guys to play special teams at a high level. Like, that's your whole job, but he doesn't do it, so we have to keep special teamers on the team just so that he can be, just so special teams can function. Look, Justin Hardy is an exceptional special teams player. This is not me trying to dog on Justin Hardy as a player. It is the fact that this team is so talented at so many positions that I want the New York Jets to keep as many good players as possible that can contribute to more than just the special teams. Dedicating a guy specifically to special teams, because Justin Hardy will never play a snap on defense ever. The New York Jets would rather put Robert Saleh on pads than have Justin Hardy try to cover somebody at a cornerback, and that's why he's listed as a special teamer and not as a cornerback. That being said, that's beyond where we're at this point. That's fine. That's going to be the situation that we're in. We move on. But one of the things that I did want to talk about really quickly is that if the New York Jets did decide that they wanted to keep Tanzel Smart, one of the ways that you could do that is you could not carry Bryce Hall and you could just carry 4 cornerbacks. I find that incredibly risky, especially with Justin Hardy taking a roster spot already. I think that you should carry 5 cornerbacks. That means that you're 2 injuries away from Justin Hardy seeing the field or playing a safety out of position at corner. I don't love that, but this is a room where you could look at and you can say, you know what? If the New York Jets needed to, we could keep Tanzel Smart this way by not carrying the extra corner. I think that's incredibly risky, so I wouldn't do it. So that's why Tanzel's not on the team. So there's my 53-man roster prediction. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section below. Did I make some misses? Did I keep the guys that you wanted me to keep? Who did I cut that you wanted to keep on the roster? And who would you kept on the roster for instead? Let me know all of that and more in the comment section below. Hey guys, don't forget to hit the subscribe button right here. If you want more Talking Jets with Tigo content, click on this video. Don't forget to hit the like button. And last but not least, go Jets.